From 2003 to 2004, there really wasn't much of a debate about who the best quarterback in football was. Today, people argue constantly. Some say Patrick Mahomes because of the championships and playoff magic. Others take Josh Allen because of the raw physical talent and production. Then there's Lamar Jackson with the MVPs and the most unique skill set the possession has ever seen. But in 2003 and 2004, the conversation was different. There wasn't this endless back and forth every week. The answer was obvious. Peyton Manning was the best quarterback in the NFL, and honestly, it wasn't particularly close. A lot of people today try to rewrite that era because Tom Brady won Super Bowls in both those seasons. That's understandable because, yes, championships do matter, and Brady eventually became the greatest quarterback ever, according to many. But if we're talking specifically about who played the position at the highest level from 2003 through 2004, the answer was Peyton Manning. The gap in performance was massive. When people discuss quarterbacks, there's always this tension between team success and individual play. Football is different from basketball. A quarterback can play great and still lose because his defense collapses or his offensive line gets destroyed. So, if you want to figure out who the best quarterback actually was during a stretch, you have to look deeper than just rings alone. And once you do that for 2003 and 2004, Peyton Manning's case becomes overwhelming. Across the regular season and playoffs combined, Peyton Manning threw for 1,747 more passing yards than Tom Brady. That is an enormous difference over just 2 years. He also threw 30 more touchdown passes and had a plus 20 points higher passer rating than Brady. Those aren't small edges, those are domination level gaps. Think about this too. Peyton Manning, he threw 91 touchdown passes across those 2 seasons, including the playoffs. No other quarterback even reached 70. Not Tom Brady, not Brett Favre, not Donovan McNabb. Nobody, just Peyton Manning himself. That tells you everything about the offensive environment Manning created. He wasn't just leading a good offense, he was operating on a completely different level from the rest of the league. And it wasn't empty stat padding either. Sometimes when quarterbacks put up huge regular season numbers, critics immediately jump to the playoffs and say the production disappeared when the games matter most. But during this specific 2 year stretch, that argument doesn't really work. Peyton Manning, he was phenomenal in the postseason too. In 2003, he threw 29 touchdown passes in the regular season with a 99 passer rating, which was already elite for that time. But once the playoffs started, he somehow, believe it or not, actually got better. His wildcard performance against the Denver Broncos is still arguably the greatest playoff performance by a quarterback of all time. Manning, this guy threw for 377 yards, 5 touchdown passes, while posting a perfect passer rating. Perfect. There are quarterbacks who never have a regular season game that efficient, let alone a playoff game with that level of pressure. Then in the divisional round against the Kansas City Chiefs, he once again had a spectacular masterpiece of performance. 304 yards, 3 touchdown passes, and 138.7 passer rating. People forget how absurd those performances looked in that era. The NFL in the early 2000s was not the pass happy league we see today. Defensive backs could be far more physical. Defensive coordinators could attack receivers differently. Passing numbers across the league were lower. So When Peyton Manning was shredding defenses like this, it felt almost unreal, unfair. Then came 2004, which remains one of the greatest quarterback seasons in the NFL history. Peyton Manning threw 49 touchdown passes with a 122.1 pass rating. At the time, those numbers looked almost fake. The touchdown record was broken, the efficiency was unbelievable. Week after week, defenses knew exactly what was coming and still couldn't stop him. What made Peyton Manning special wasn't just the arm talent either. In terms of pure throwing ability, there may have been quarterbacks with stronger arms, but nobody controlled the game mentally the way Peyton Manning did. Watching Peyton Manning during that period was like watching a coordinator playing quarterback on the field. He diagnosed coverages before the snap better than anyone, any other quarterback. He manipulated defenses. He changed protections constantly. He basically ran the entire offense himself. The famous audibles became part of football culture because he was always orchestrating everything at the line of scrimmage. Defenses looked confused before the ball was even snapped because Peyton Manning was usually 2 steps ahead. And when the playoffs came, when the playoffs arrived, after that historic 2004 regular season, he didn't suddenly just collapse or choked the way critics like to pretend. In the wildcard round against the Denver Broncos, once again, Peyton Manning delivered another insane, ridiculous performance. 458 passing yards, 4 touchdown passes, and 145.7 pass rating. 458 yards in a playoff game during that era was ridiculous. It was insane. It wasn't normal. It wasn't even close to normal. That's why the Peyton Manning couldn't perform in the playoffs narrative doesn't really fit when talking specifically about 2003 and 2004. If anything, he elevated his play during those two postseason runs. In fact, during that stretch, Manning led all quarterbacks in playoff passing yards, touchdown passes, and pass rating. So, if someone says Brady was better during those years solely because of rings, the argument becomes shaky once you actually compare the individual quarterback play. Now, to be fair, Brady absolutely deserves credit for winning championships. Quarterbacks are ultimately judged by postseason success, and Brady's teams finished the job. That matters. Nobody is denying that. But there is a difference between saying Brady had more team success and saying Brady individually played better quarterback than Peyton Manning during those two seasons, 2003 to 2004. Those are not the same thing. If one quarterback is producing dramatically more yards, dramatically a lot more touchdowns, and a way higher efficiency passer rating, winning MVPs, and dominating statistically in both the regular season and also the playoffs, it becomes difficult to argue another quarterback was actually better just because his team won the Super Bowl, especially when Manning's playoff performances themselves were actually outstanding, actually better than Tom Brady. Another thing that strengthens Peyton Manning's case, in my opinion, is how unanimous the football world seemed at the time. He obviously won MVP both the 2003 and 2004 season, and he was actually the only quarterback to even receive votes in each of the season. That tells you the gap people saw back then. There were years where Manning clearly looked like the best quarterback, superior quarterback, and 2003-2004 was probably the clearest example. Many would argue 2003-2004 was Peyton Manning's peak. Over those 2 years, Manning redefined elite quarterback play. He combined absurd volume with efficiency in a way people hadn't really seen before. Usually, quarterbacks either threw a ton with higher interceptions or played efficiently with more lower, numbers. Peyton Manning somehow did both at once, and unlike some statistical explosions, this wasn't happening in meaningless situations. His team was constantly winning games, controlling games, and terrifying defenses. You can also make the argument that this period helped actually change the NFL itself. The offensive revolution that exploded later with quarterbacks like Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, of course, Tom Brady's later years, and eventually Patrick Mahomes was partly built on what Peyton Manning was doing in Indianapolis. Peyton Manning was easily the best quarterback in those 2 years, 2003 to 2004. Peyton Manning had the stats, he had the efficiency, Manning had the MVPs, Manning had the playoff production, Manning had the eye test. He was operating at a level no quarterback really reached during that window. So that'll be it for this video. Leave a comment, tell me what you think. I much appreciate it if you click the like button. Thank you for watching.